Hey everyone, welcome to the next installment of our What's New with Vanilla webinar series. Today I'm joining you with members of our product management and product council teams here at Vanilla to discuss our latest and greatest releases available or coming soon in the platform. My name is Rachel Pettis and I'm a member of the product marketing team here at Vanilla. I'm thrilled to be joined with my colleagues Matt Lane, a senior product manager, and Patrick Carlson, a product counsel and formerly a practicing trust and estates attorney. Before we jump into our content today, I'd love to have a little fun in light of the upcoming 4th of July holiday and have a little icebreaker. Matt and Patrick, I don't know about you guys, but this time of year I associate with barbecues, outdoor activities, just being outdoors. If you guys are at a barbecue with a really nice spread, what are you most excited to eat? Matt, let's start with you. What are you going for first?
We always have burgers and hot dogs. It's always a very standard fare. So typically a burger, and then I love my grandmother's potato salad. So those two things I typically look forward to.
Awesome. Patrick, what about you?
I'd say I'm going for the barbecued chicken, like pulled chicken, and then definitely some baked beans. In addition, obviously that standard burger and hot dogs. Those are always a perennial favorite.
Awesome. I love all those things too. I'm also a really big fan of watermelon, or if we're getting a little fancy, maybe a watermelon feta salad, but I digress. Now that we're all thinking of all those tasty treats you could possibly throw in a grill, let's get into the meat of today's conversation. So today we're going to focus on some exciting updates that we've been working on over the last couple of months. First, we'll start with First to Pass, our newest tool in the Vanilla platform. We'll then move on to support for class distributions, and then wrap up with some PDF enhancements to our PDF client report, and jump into what's in the pipe and what's to come for Vanilla. We'll also include some time at the end for Q&A. So for all of our attendees in the audience, if you have any questions about what we're discussing or the platform in general, please feel free to use the Q&A box and we'll address your questions at the end. If we happen to have a lot of questions and we've run out of time, we'd also love for you to include your email address and we'll make sure to circle back with you following the webinar. If you're new to the Vanilla platform, or if you were recently introduced to us, I'd love to quickly touch on our mission as a company. We at Vanilla are building the complete platform for estate planning. Every day at Vanilla, we are working towards this mission, and the features and enhancements we'll discuss today are part of our continuous effort to achieve it. To that end, I'd like to introduce the Vanilla Estate Advisory Platform. The Vanilla platform is an end-to-end platform that can empower you, our customers, to deepen your client relationships, expand your share of wallet, and deliver differentiated advice to your clients. Now you may be thinking, all of that sounds great, but what do you mean by estate advisory and how can Vanilla actually help me and my clients? We at Vanilla consider complete estate advisory to be built around these 4 pillars: organize, visualize, strategize, and execute. Let's start with organize. With Vanilla, you can easily onboard and organize estate plans and house family, financial, and estate information all in one place. For visualize, Vanilla's interactive diagrams, summaries, and waterfalls displaying entities and assets across generations will allow you to see the complete picture of your client's estate and plan and allow you to drive impactful planning conversations with them. Moving on to strategize, we can empower you, the advisor, to have ongoing conversations with your clients, provide them with proactive advice, and help them plan for the future with in-depth tools around scenario planning and opportunity identification. And finally, that brings us around to execute. With the Vanilla Estate Advisory Platform, you'll be able to execute your clients' wishes with regard to their legacy by tracking important milestones, and later this year, by creating on-demand estate planning documents. Now that we've level set, I'm excited to jump into our newest tool, First to Pass. And I'll start off by discussing how this tool serves the advisor. First to Pass allows you, the advisor, to have deeper conversations with your clients by visualizing the death of either spouse in terms of how assets will flow through their estate. Before, in the Vanilla platform, we were able to support one fact pattern according to the death of one specified spouse. But now in the estate plan, waterfall, and beneficiary sections, you can dynamically switch between death pattern sequences and provide your clients with a holistic view on how their assets will be distributed. You can also model either scenario in our PDF reports and use those reports as a nice leave behind for your clients or discuss them live during planning sessions. Now, here at Vanilla, we understand that talking with clients around mortality events can be uncomfortable. But with First to Pass, we can equip you with the tool to help your clients ensure their legacy will be carried out in accordance with their wishes. Moving over to our estate or wealth and estate planning specialist, First to Pass allows you to expedite the estate document abstraction process in Vanilla while adding more fact patterns. Now you can abstract a client's estate plan to represent both fact patterns, client predeceased spouse or client survived spouse, and reflect those patterns in Estate Builder when you're building up their client's estate plan. What you see in Estate Builder will also transfer to the waterfall and estate plan and the other areas, as mentioned before, for the advisor to see. Additionally, you can also save time during the document extraction process with our new option to copy one estate document and apply the details to another document in the estate with a similar fact pattern. With both of these enhancements to the abstraction process, you can be more nimble without sacrificing that accuracy and precision that's so necessary to building out a client's estate in the Vanilla platform. Now, I've said a lot about First to Pass, but let's tie everything together and actually see the tool in action within the Vanilla platform. Matt, I'm going to give you the floor. Would you mind giving us a demo?
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's run through this. So in addition to what Rachel just talked about, we know that most advisors, when they're talking about whether it's estate planning or retirement planning or investments, they want to be able to show a more holistic picture. They want to be able to show multiple scenarios. It's not just going to be limited to choosing a single scenario. This is the plan. Let's move forward with this plan. Clients like to have optionality. They like to see multiple scenarios put in front of them. And probably one of the most important is First to Pass, like who passes first. And then like if this person doesn't pass first, like what happens? So with that in mind, let's just jump into what this tool actually is. You're going to see right here, I have a little toggle between George and Lucille. But we can actually back up a little bit and go to what actually has to happen in order to enable First to Pass. So within an abstraction, when a document is being abstraction, right now, or up until we release First to Pass, we orientated around first death and second death. With First to Pass, what we're going to do is make step 2 and step 3 a little bit different. They're going to be more inclusive. So with George predeceases Lucille, they're going to actually add a what happens after George passes, and then what happens after Lucille passes in that exact scenario. Then moving on to step 3, we're just going to add what happens if George survives Lucille, what happens after George dies when Lucille has passed first. So there is a little bit of pre-work before we get to both of these scenarios that we didn't originally have. Once that information is entered, I can go into estate plan, waterfall, and beneficiaries and see the effects that this has on an estate. So right here, this is what happens if George passes first. This is how assets flow through his bypass at his marital. And then after Lucille passes, if I want to see what happens when Lucille passes first, I simply hit the toggle and I can see how those assets might flow differently through the estate. And you can see here, there's a little bit different planning between when George passes first and when Lucille passes first. This is also present in waterfall. So here I have Lucille passing first. This toggle actually just carries over from the previous page. So if I change it here, it's going to change in estate plan. It's also going to change in beneficiaries. So I can toggle that as well. Okay. This is because I added a document that is unabstracted right before the demo. My apologies, but just to show you, it's also present here in beneficiaries as well. So that is First to Pass. Estate plan, waterfall, beneficiaries. You can toggle between George and Lucille, assuming that the information has been entered in the abstraction. Back to you, Rachel.
Next, we're going to move on to our newest tool to release in the Vanilla platform, support for class distributions. Patrick, can you walk us through this new tool?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. So the first question is kind of what is a class distribution? And we've all seen documents that may say things like, I leave my estate to my son, Sam, and my daughter, Beth. But there are also documents out there that might say things like, I leave it to my children per stirpes. And before we had this feature, you had to, if you were either doing an abstraction or building a beneficiary flow, you had to kind of figure out what that math was. So we've now baked that in, but let's talk about sort of what these things are and how they're different. If you show us the per stirpe side, the idea here is that whenever you have this type of designation, it's for if one of your beneficiaries has predeceased you, what happens to those assets? Do they instead go down to that beneficiary's children, or do they instead get distributed perhaps a different way, like the per capita model, which just does everything equally? So the idea here is that if you have documents or beneficiary designations that say things like my children equally, or my descendants equally, my descendants per stirpes, whatever that might be, we're now able to model and show those here in the system. So if you can just show per capita, that kind of gives us a little bit of a side-by-side to explain how these things really are about what the client's goal is. And that's the reason why there's a couple of different models that we had to take into account when we were building out this feature. On the per stirpe, some clients want to think about each kind of line of the family getting an equal amount. On a per capita distribution, a client might be more concerned about making sure that everybody gets an equal share, regardless of sort of how closely related they might be. So if we move on, we can kind of look at how this kind of works for the advisor side of things. These types of class distributions are present sometimes on life insurance forms, so a beneficiary form there, retirement accounts, transfer on death, so TOD, or payable on death, POD types of accounts. So this allows you to easily set that up when you're setting up those beneficiary designations in either the primary or the contingent beneficiary. So if you have a situation where it says it's going to the client's spouse, then you just would put the spouse as primary, and then maybe it's the children equally. You could do the children per capita as that contingent. And this works across all of those different types of accounts on the balance sheet. But we didn't stop there. We also thought about how these things factor into a client's trust. So when you're inside of that estate strategy flow, Rachel will go to the next slide here, inside of Estate Builder, which Matt was showing us briefly earlier, inside of Estate Builder, this is a place where you're able to add those things for a trust. So if a client's trust says to say, for example, create shares for each child per stirpes, you can now have that calculated. At the end, what this is doing is it's just really adding an additional layer of data into the estate planning report and making it a little bit more dynamic. So we now have the family tree, we've got the financial data from the balance sheet, and we've got the estate data from the abstraction flow, and they're now all going to work collectively together to sort of tell us what that distribution amount is for each of the beneficiaries on both the beneficiary screen and that waterfall. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. And Matt, I'll have you share your screen, and we can kind of walk through a quick demo to kind of see how the feature works.
Yeah, let's do it. So let's start with a retirement account, shall we?
Perfect.
So here we have Mike's retirement account. I've already added this just to save us a little bit of time. If I go in and edit the account, you'll see that in the primary beneficiary, this is also available in contingent beneficiary, but if I'm in here, I have the ability to add a class distribution. This is the same place I add all my other beneficiaries as well. So we're just going to go ahead and keep this 2 descendants per stirpes. It's a pretty standard class distribution, and we're going to go ahead and leave that at 100%. Let me just make sure I do this as well. And now I can save that. So I have a per stirpes class distribution on Mike's retirement account. Now, if we pop over to the waterfall, you'll see here that I have Benny and Stella. So Benny and Stella are the children of Mike and Jenny. You'll see here that I have this share of Mike's retirement account on both of them, 500K a piece, because that's the distribution that I selected. And at the bottom here, you're going to see Mike's retirement account per stirpes at each generation. So if you do a class distribution, this is an important point. The only thing the only outcome, if there hasn't been a death of a child, is really going to be just showing that designation in the waterfall. If though, unfortunately, there's a death of a child, so I'm going to go in here to Stella. Stella actually has 2 children. We'll take a look at that. Sue and Mark are Stella's children. I can mark Stella as deceased. I can save that. So now we have Stella here is deceased. And then if I head back over, where was I? Head back over to the estate waterfall. Do a little quick refresh. You'll see that Benny is still receiving 500K, but then the portion or the pool of assets that was going to be distributed to Stella is now being distributed to Stella's children, Mark and Sue. We have those designations here as well. And then down here at the bottom, we see why that distribution occurred. And then like Patrick was saying, in addition to providing this for any sort of TOD account, POD accounts, retirement accounts, as well as life insurance policies, if we pop into an abstraction, so here I'm in a revocable trust, and I want to add a class distribution, I can do that here as well. So with this, I can add a class name. So I've already done one, so I'm not going to do another one here, but like I could actually, let's just do this. So this is, let's see, I think I already have this one, but let's just do it again. Golf buddies. So we can get really, we can have a lot of fun with this. And I'll just do 2 descendants just to show it. And I can even add to this class. So I'm not limited to just having a specific, like these pre-existing descendants. I can also add to this. I can say, oh, I want to add Benny as well, or I want to add Stella, for example. I'm not going to do that here, though. I'm just going to keep it with 2 descendants to make it simple. And then I can select my per capita per stirpes. An important point here is if I do select per stirpes, I'm not able to select this at each generation. That's not a valid input. However, if I toggle to per capita, then it allows me to do so. So I'm just going to pop back to per stirpes. That needs to be changed.
And Matt, while you're finishing that up, the ability to create the class here, obviously our sample clients here only have 2 kids, but imagine if they had 3 kids and one of their children were disinherited, we could create that class to include just those 2 kids. So now the logic will take it into account the disinheritance of that 3rd child, which is something that you sometimes see in certain documents. So the ability to kind of create that custom class allows you to either enlarge it or reduce it compared to the sort of standard options of my descendants and my children.
Yep. And then here you'll see like one group of golf buddies gets 50% post-tax, the other gets the whatever's remaining in that trust and owned by that trust. And then if I pop back in to the waterfall, you'll see down here at the bottom, actually did not catch that one. So again, this is still being tested. This is still in staging. I'm looking to release this sometime next week. Still a few little kinks to work out, but by and large, the functionality is there for the most part. I see this revocable trust also has a designation on it here. So back to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Matt and Patrick. That was great. Moving on to our new enhancements to our PDF report. Matt, before we jump into all of that, could you give us a quick summary of just the evolution of our PDF report over the last couple of months before we jump into these new great features?
Sorry, I was muted. So PDF is something that we have been committed to over the past year. We understand that a take home or leave behind document is something that clients are used to getting, and it's a really nice thing to have after a call with their advisor, just to make sure that whatever was discussed in the meeting, they have something to keep fresh in front of them. That said, it is a bit difficult to generate some of these PDFs and some of the diagrams that we originally went with. We didn't have a lot of confidence that we were going to be able to automatically render those consistently. So we've made a lot of design changes over the last couple of months to how we're actually displaying some of the information in these PDFs, specifically with the estate overview, also with pages for the diagram views. We've made a lot of changes there. And what that has done is really just allowed us to have more confidence in consistently generating these reports, so that when you do go in and generate them, what you receive has no errors in it. And a lot of the things that we have done since we launched our version 2.0 of PDFs a couple of months ago is in line with that philosophy. It's just try to make it easier to render these things consistently. In addition to that, we're getting a lot of positive feedback from customers about like what types of things that they want to see in a report. So it's one of those things. It's going to continue to evolve. We like to work with customers on getting feedback as to what they would like to see in a report, or if there's any part of our platform that you see in-app that you would like to also pull into report. And then finally, just some of the customizations that we're going to start allowing in PDF. Like those, that's also a lot like based mainly on feedback that we get from customers. Some customers want to have like a 90-page report. Some want to be able to have the power to reduce that down to just a few pages. So there's also been a lot of ability to customize the reports that you receive.
Awesome. That's great. That's great to hear. We take a lot of pride in our PDF report and how instrumental it can be in those client conversations. So, thank you for touching on all the newest and latest and greatest enhancements.
Yeah.
And finally, Matt, do you want to just lead us through a couple of exciting things we have in the pipe? We have some new stuff coming out this summer. Why don't you lead us through those things?
Yeah. So there's some things we're really excited about. We do love adding features to our system. But another big thing, like one of the big priorities going forward, is making some of those tools a lot easier to use. And with balance sheet, for example, I know that there has been, it's a little bit of a cumbersome process as it is right now, like having to add an asset, then having to go add an account, add that asset to an account. The work that we're doing right now in balance sheet is going to reduce that process down to just a couple of clicks. So essentially, you are going to be adding an account and then adding an asset to that account in the same exact place, in the same flyout modal of our balance sheet. So that's due, I believe, probably sometime in the first month of Q3, so sometime middle to end of July. That's probably one of our biggest features coming out, just because it is going to reduce the amount of time it takes to add assets to the balance sheet manually. Next up is the multi-client integration. We're working on a lot of integrations. So like, we understand that even if we make the balance sheet super easy to add assets manually, it's always going to be easier to set up an integration. So we have a few integrations planned out over the next couple of months, and those should be really helpful in terms of just getting client and multiple clients into our system faster. And then bequest upgrades. When you are in our system, we allow you to give specific gifts, pre-residuary gifts, pre-tax gifts in our abstraction modal. When you are in that modal, right now, we allow a gift of real estate or tangible personal property. So you can go and you can add specific gifts that are listed in your balance sheet, and then give percentages of those to beneficiaries, typically to children, but to any of your heirs. People really seem to like that, so we want to expand that capability to other assets as well. So once this lands, a user will be able to go in and, like, using the documentation they have, we'll be able to select specific assets in the balance sheet. So if I want to give an account from my balance sheet, if I want to give like some art or something like that, I can go identify that specific asset in the balance sheet and then pull it in as a gift. This is probably landing, this is definitely going to land sometime in Q3, probably toward the middle or end of Q3. It's something that we're very excited about. It seems like a small feature, but just being able to keep everything very consistent with what is in your balance sheet, what is actually stated in the documentation, and making sure that there's a perfect connection between, what is displayed and what is actually being bequested is super important to our platform. So that should land middle of Q3, toward the end of Q3 potentially, and we'll definitely be doing demos on that probably in maybe the next webinar or the one after.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, we'll definitely touch on those in an upcoming webinar and go through everything you've mentioned. And now with the remaining time that we have left, let's jump into Q&A. Folks, please feel free to use the Q&A box if you have any questions about what you've seen today or about the Vanilla platform in general. We're here, to be resources for you. Please ask us what's on your mind. Patrick, I think this is for you. Will order of death also take form of ownership into account? For example, JTWROS goes the survivor, and if it's a blended family where each spouse has a non-mirrored trust, that can drive wealth to different people if the order of death is changed?
Great question. I think it does. We've been doing some scoping to make sure that that type of feature is there. I think that work is part of the work that Matt was just describing on gifts, because some of that logic is tied in with that. So that is when that is slated as part of that work, just to confirm that it works the way you would expect that you laid out in the question there.
Makes sense. Thanks, Patrick. Matt, I think this might be a question for you. When onboarding a new Ultra client, how much support will Vanilla provide with this new functionality? Can you speak to that, or is that a question we should ask our support team?
I am on mute. Yeah, I can actually speak to it a little bit, but I would like, maybe we can follow up with the customer support team just to get a slightly more nuanced answer. But yes, any new feature like this, we want to make sure that we have articles on our knowledge base, and then pair that with training. So like if we do release a feature like per-stirpes, for example, or excuse me, class distributions, we definitely want to make sure that there are potentially videos that can show how the feature works, back that up with knowledge base articles, and then also in-person trainings, especially when we are onboarding new organizations and even some of our older organizations. So we can get a more nuanced answer with what the plan is actually from our customer support team for some of these new features. But going forward, the idea is that anytime we roll out a new set of features, especially something like class distributions that is a little bit more in depth, we definitely want to have at least knowledge base articles plus some videos to show how the product is used. Absolutely. And to echo that, we will have more documentation around this when the product officially launches. So stay tuned for that. Let's see, Patrick, this is a question for you. My client doesn't have per-stirpes or per capita on their beneficiary forms or in their documents. Do I have to use this feature?
Absolutely not. This is an optional new way to add some additional information. If you have a client that says, I'm leaving 50% to Sam, 50% to Beth, and it just doesn't have any of that type of class language anywhere in the document or the beneficiary form, then you just simply would input it the way you always have. It's a completely optional feature.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you. Let's see. Here's another one. Matt, I think this one's for you. If I update the family tree because of the birth or the death of a child, will the waterfall in Vanilla automatically update? For per-stirpes or any sort of class distribution, yes, it automatically updates. We showed, actually, in the demo, we showed that when, I don't remember the names, but one of the children passed, assets flowed through to the other two children. But yes, when you select, when somebody is deceased, they should no longer be present in the waterfall. Got it. Thank you so much. So it looks like we're coming up on time. So I think that, for our folks that have submitted questions, we'll definitely circle back with you. Thank you for your questions. Just before we let everyone go, we'd love to invite you to our next upcoming webinar, our state advisory for non-taxable clients with Kitseys.com, Jeff Levine. Should be a really great conversation, so please check that out. We also invite you to check out our blog online to hear more about our product releases and launches, such as the ones we touched on today, and also new things coming in the pipe for Vanilla. And finally, if you like the demos that you saw today and want to see a more comprehensive demo of the platform or specific features, please reach out to us and our sales team, and we'll be happy to do that for you. So that's all we have for everyone today. Thank you so much for being with us. We really love talking about all these new and great things happening in vanilla, and we're glad that you're along for the ride. We'll see you next time, and hope that everyone has a safe and fun 4th of July.